Hey, morning.
Good morning. I was gonna say. Okay. Morning. How you doing?
People don't know you, people don't care about you, if you don't got your position. People don't feed you how they feeding them. Well, that's what I was gonna do. They eat pancakes and shit, and I'm eating Cocoa Puffs, but not even Cocoa Puffs. Sugar smacks. No, but not. Right, the boo bread and shit. Like I wasn't even eating name bread shit, but they eat it top of the line breakfast.
A lot of meetings here.
So it was
People
just
really
big.
like it.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of shit.
Antoinette,
Hello, how are
one
you?
of the directors here.
George Deleon, how are you?
Nice
Good
meeting
to
you.
Good to see you. So this is scheduled, this was a 9 a.m. group. When is it end?
This one ends at about 11.
9 to 11, it's kind of a get to know, they call it a threshold. It's a get to know group, is it?
When they first come in, it's really learn a lot of things about community and how the format of community is. We use the Circles for Beginners. Yeah, that book, The Threshold. Well, not The Threshold,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
it talks a lot about community.
Okay.
Yeah, it's one of Nia's curriculum.
Yeah.
Okay.
Those first beginners.
So this is roughly a 2-hour group. And what happens after that?
After that, they have a break, then they go to lunch. And then we have other things that's going on in the community, like seminars and different things like that.
After lunch and seminars?
Not right after lunch, but sometimes we have seminars. Well, we have seminars every day at 10 o'clock. So the people that's not in Threshold, they'll be in seminar.
Where are they? Where are the seminars?
Across the street in the
And we'll go over
in
there.
the dining room.
Okay.
We'll go over there and walk you through that.
Okay, so 10 o'clock then there should be a seminar.
Yes,
starting there.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's every day.
And do they all have job functions?
We're working on that.
Yeah. That's one. I've made an emphasis. You know, where's your structure? Where's your job assignments? You know, everybody's got to be part of the community and making a contribution. But this is a really multi-purpose room. It's a polling place.
Yeah, you
We started something called the Los Angeles Regional Reentry Council,
right.
which now has, I think, over 75 agencies that belong to that. They have their meetings here.
This would be, Island South getting high, how are you? So that's some history, and
Thank you.
there was an invasion when everybody came and dug up the beach and arrested all of the Synanon people because they were there. So this is another kind of group room classroom.
Oh, very beautiful.
Thank you, George. And this is another one. Right now they're doing some studying, so there's a little school back here, so they're working on their math, and I'm trying to get the school moved to a bigger space, which hopefully will happen. Right now this is a charter school. These guys have got a fantastic teacher that can't be here, so I'm working on getting them like a space that's about good morning, you guys.
Morning.
Like about 6 or 8 times bigger than this. So I have a really big lab, but I gotta move a whole bunch of people. So this is a lot good teachers, a lot of guys doing good computer skills, GED, all that stuff.
Morning.
And then hi, then I was just saying nice things about you.
Thank you.
I'm working on getting you bigger. I have a plan. To get you,
Nice.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Okay, cool.
It's going to be a little bit of a domino, but I'm trying to get a great big space for you across
Right.
the streets so you
That would be awesome.
Wouldn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
would.
this,
It really would.
George Deleon.
I'm sorry, my hands are
It's
wet,
okay.
but
All right.
nice to meet you.
Well,
Armando.
Mondo?
Armando. Yes.
Armando.
Yeah.
5P
He's
charter
done,
school.
Oh, yes?
I'm the teacher for the 5C
Yeah,
charter
okay.
school.
He's done
I'm
heroic.
about to practice
Heroic.
GED test about 8 guys right now.
Yeah. Pretty
Yeah.
So
incredible.
so hopefully we could
They'll
all get
pass.
push them. Oh yeah.
They're smart.
Oh, they all have great scores.
I know,
So
of
They had great scores.
yes, they do. They have good reading and math scores right now. So
That's terrific.
hopefully we could all move them together.
That's really
Yeah.
nice.
It's the first time I'm attempting a cohort. So
Good idea.
Yeah.
That's great.
So then that's the men's bathroom,
Come on in.
Okay.
and then that's the women's bathroom.
Okay.
Okay. And that's how. So that gives you a little bit of an idea.
All this artwork,
Well, some of it. This is our students from here.
yeah?
We used to have a woman who was our HR person, who I found out, as it turned out, taught art when she was a young woman in prisons. So she started an art class. She's since retired, but she started an art class on Saturday mornings. So a lot of different guys did this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of, there's a lot of talent. In prison. Like, what you remember, Bucky Fuller smugs a lot of and some of it is stuff I buy just for the household because I think it's nice. Tucson, the gem show, we ship it over. And then in the big room, we try and have something from every culture, sort of,
Yeah.
Making sure that everybody has a job in the community, so that they really feel like they're needed, and that there's that accountability that goes with it. Having really good circles, so that having really good morning and evening gatherings, so they're not routinized and boring. So that they really have content, that they're interactive.
Okay, thanks.
So it's not just one person standing up and lecturing a bunch of people, which is, they've had that their whole lives. Let's make it a really as vital and as a much of a gold standard, basic elements of the therapeutic community as we possibly can under the circumstances that we've got. And this is really about, and we said the baseline. What's the baseline? Know the people who are coming in. Know them. Know their stories. Know where their kids are. Know what their crimes were. Know what they care about. I said, if you don't have that, no matter what tools we use, it's not going to work. You've got to engage. You have to get to know them and engage with them. And otherwise, you can have the greatest. You can have really, really good processes, but they need that involvement. So then if we've got that as our baseline, then let's build on that. Let's add all those other elements of the therapeutic community that work, that we know that those are the active ingredients, Okay. Now, this is what the interior of our buildings look like. This is exactly what they look like.
No, I got to tell you, it's
Yeah.
miraculous transformation.
When we had our 10-year anniversary, there was a woman, because this was operated by the Department of Corrections for 40 years. And there was a woman, vocational rehab, and she used to come down here, and she said, I drove by it several times. I didn't recognize it. And she had come here for 20 years.
Yeah.
I said, well, that's good. That's what we're aiming for. Okay. So this was just a warehouse. And we've turned it into, this is kind of our, front desk. Look at this, there's some of the old, that's the old original cinema building.
Oh, is that right?
On the beach. That's Tomales Bay. So we got those in there was some kind of sale at the 50th anniversary, and we got those.
See.
See ya.
Doing, sir.
Okay.
This is the man who was doing the threshold thing this morning.
Sorry for the environment.
New admission.
Yeah, the new
So was that is that typically what goes on in that group?
In that group, yeah, it depends on what passage we're coming out the book. We're in the circle for beginners.
Beginners.
Yeah, so we was dealing with like death and things of that nature. It got real deep.
Was that one of the topics, death?
Yeah, death. It was hurts and loss. It was death, but then it was also joy and what is some of the good things we've done.
And that's an early group, and you're getting right into some of that stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah. Every person that's come out of prison that I've met, 99.9% lost somebody close to them while they were incarcerated.
And that's
no way to deal with it.
And I think it don't jump there, but like that's like the 7th chapter and module. And so what happens is I've been doing like I tell people like it's kind of cool because there's so much suppression going on with them. And so really in this process, if you can deliver that right and have them open up,
right.
we do the follow up, then the rest of the process they then
kind of like more easier to receive in circles, and what I'm learning in Threshold is that it makes them more open as they go farther into the curriculum, into the different lodges and stuff like that, to be more participants, because they didn't know that they was going to speak to some of that stuff.
Get into some of that stuff in week 3 is really challenging and unusual. And they're okay.
Oh my God! Like now the important part, you know you're the king of it, but the important part is, like I was sharing with them too, like our follow up. So definitely, like there's a follow up for me today to just see emotionally, you know. And so I kind of prepped them for that. Like you get raw when you kind of open up, but there's been years of suppression and the plan and the trying to like do everything to avoid what's really matter.
These guys, were they all of them? Were they in treatment before? Were they in the prison?
No, they came through MCRP. Yeah.
So they've had no treatment exposure? Right?
Well, I can't 100% say that, because they come from various programs or prisons. So some of them have had it, because some of them been in prison like for 14 years.
Yeah.
Some of them been in prison for a year or two, or a couple of months.
Our conversation is important. I'll tell you why. Because if it's true that there's a few individuals who may not have had any previous treatment exposure, come into a program, are here for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, and can begin dealing with some of these topics in this way. Because our history and our experience was always there's a timing for it. They have to first get comfortable, safe in the environment, have some relationships in the environment, then they can get into some of the issues in their lives. So this would be very surprising. You got early people being able to sit down and get into some topics, and you're saying it may increase the likelihood that they, going forward, they're more open.
I'm actually saying that.
That's very important.
From my experience in, like, being in the project, and I've seen like up in Lancaster and stuff, when I was a mentor up there, is that definitely, and it's all about delivery. It's all about the compassion that you have and setting the stage too, right? That if they only got a month, 2 months, you know what I'm saying, and we just kind of like running them through the mill of then they don't never probably get to touch those things. And this community is like the greatest thing that they're probably ever achieving, that self-introspection. Right. You know what I mean? So even since I've been doing Threshold, that's been our conversation, like what really matters to us, fatherhood, sonship, and these things, and how do we process our emotions and things of that nature.
It'd be good if you can think about it, and the particular group that you're talking about here, how many of them had some previous treatment exposure, or at least sitting in groups talking about some, trying to get an idea whether they in some ways at least had some preparation for this so they can do it, or is it really raw new people, getting into some difficult stuff? Because that would be a contribution. You can identify,
and that's
we can do this early. We can get them in early. Yeah.
And that's the thing too. It's like such a mixed group, because you have some that have, like I say, been in your programs inside, the self-help programs. Then you have some that, because the way it's set up, you have some that's coming like fresh out of reception.
Yeah, that's
that never had the opportunity, but here they may be here for a little longer time than they even do their prison stints, and so I have noticed though that a lot of the fellas who, when we do speak on these type of subjects, like it's very like they start thinking, 'cause they ain't never been brought this to, they ain't never had this brought to them like that, from that insightful position of what you're suppressing and why prison is connected to what you done suppress, because I know for me, my 26 years in prison, but what I also recognize is that I was in prison way before I got to prison. Right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So whenever that light cut on, it was revelational.
Yeah.
And so I think the earlier the revelation, the healthier probably the process.
We used to believe that if you got into things too early,
Right.
it would chase them away. You know what I mean? It was too threatening. You know what I mean? Didn't want to get into it. But we may be learning something else. This, what your experience is telling us, maybe there's another way we have to look at this.
The other thing on this is that who's the catalyst?
Who's facilitating?
Right.
Yeah.
Facility.
So you got somebody, Norm. I mean, these guys can't say, "Well, you've never done this." Okay, right. I mean, no matter what they've done, he's done it twice or 3 times.
No,
right?
there's no question about his role.
And because he was with us for such a long time, he really kind of integrated a lot of this stuff. So this is the identity change you're talking about. Which is like so. Then he can talk to these guys in a way that the average counselor can't.
Maybe that's the overriding factor.
Right.
And there's then like you say, there's the preparation. Then there's the essential part is the follow up.
Follow up is essential.
And understanding. Like I too know, like you said, like we talked about loss, and so I opened up by sharing with them that I was in a lifer circle in Amity when I came early in the stage of it, and we was just talking, and I just recognized like, wow, like I betrayed my children, and I cried for like 6 months of like that portion.
Yeah,
but
terrific.
because like I do agree, when you open it that soon, like you definitely have to be more caring or compassionate or overwatching the process, because this stuff do make people. That stuff is traumatic that you're dealing with, right? So definitely that is not negated in this. But I think as you deliver it, and for me to share, like I understand what that pain is like, and just remembering, like my reflection of myself showed in how distant I was from my children. That was a direct reflection of how distant I was from myself. So I've been doing it I've been here about 6 months. I've been doing it now, threshold, that part of it, for probably the last 4 months. And from what I've seen in the follow-up, the delivery, and the preparation, that a lot of them do, they have responded well. I think they respond more well, like dealing with that, than just running like amok. I do. Because now they kind of understand the premise of the process.
Where we're going.
Where we going. See, because other than that, it's still CDC to them.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of share with them like this. Like we working with a tightrope right now, right? Because we got CDC who keeps them telling them that they prisoners, and then you got the therapeutic community who's trying to bring them back to their name other than their number. And so we, and so so they need to, I see it like.
This is very important.
Right.
Gee, this is a very uplifting conversation. Well, for one, it's this point I've been making, and that is we have had the understanding that there are issues that individuals have to be prepared for before they can get into it, because it could be very disorienting for them. He's now giving us examples, maybe you can get into these things very early. There may be some very special conditions. You need a very skilled facilitator to do that. I would like to know how many of these individuals had a little preparation.
You can ask.
Do that. Yeah.
Ask
Let's
this
find
time.
out.
Let's do that. All right.
Because
He'll
there may
be
be
around.
something.
He'll be here again tomorrow. He's doing a presentation tomorrow.
So what I would do for you is, for the group that I had today, I would give you a list of who had prior group experience.
We'll get an idea. We'll get an idea what that's all about.
Okay?
This is terrific.
Amen. Love your work. Amen. God bless you.
All right. Thank you,
All right.
Norm.
Thank you. All right.
Okay.
Now.
We'll see you tomorrow.
Well, again, I can't overemphasize the potential importance of this conversation. If it's true that we basically have naive individuals in threshold groups, able to essentially begin at that level of disclosure, given the fact that it takes a skilled facilitator in the right circumstances. But if they're naive, they're early in the treatment, and get to that level of disclosure, that's a very important psychological truth for our kind of work. Because we have felt, many of us, that there was a certain timing for that. You had to be here and get psychologically safe and get a little bit more stable to go back into some of the trauma,
Sure,
the
sure.
issues of your life.
Yeah.
And that still may very well be true for some number of people.
Yes.
And it might very well be that we can learn something about who in that group is essentially most available to that and who isn't. So
we'll find out
It's
tomorrow.
a very important conversation.
Yeah.
It changed my mind around the way I've been teaching.
Yeah. Well, it's all these things, George. It's like, who's teaching? What's the environment you're teaching in? You know, and like he said, you know, this the need to. They still think they're in prison.
You know, but like, for example, it may very well be that for some subset of people, early disclosure will keep them in treatment.
Yeah.
It's like an intervention to essentially minimize dropout.
Yeah.
You would think, we always thought
Well,
the
so
other way.
it's
Right?
the other
We
way.
thought the other
Right,
way,
right, right. You get in too deep at the beginning. But the thing that's really key in what he's saying is follow up.
Yes, of
because
course.
you have the expansion contraction thing going on.
Yeah.
Somebody goes in and drops something really major.
Yeah.
Then a day later, they may be feeling really, really different.
Oh, yes,
Okay,
oh,
so
yes.
you got to be there
It's an exquisite psychological issue that has to
Yeah.
be well understood. And he said it quite spontaneously. He's
Yeah.
got it. He said,
Oh,
you
yeah.
got to follow it. It's no doubt.
yeah.
This is what area?
This is the jail project. So
Right.
the jail project works like this. What the county identified, this is a pay for success model,
Yeah.
where a private investor comes in, and if you can reach your goal, they get a return on their investment.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's privately funded. We started off with a few other agencies in a pilot program a few years back. So what they identified, who are the people who are going in and out of the jail, in and out of the emergency rooms, high utilizers that are taking,
Yeah.
10% of the people are taking 80% of the money,
Right.
So the model is, can we case manage those people from jail into services and into permanent and supportive housing? And what the county figured out is costing them $70,000 a year per person. That
Really?
group. We can do it for less than $20,000 a year if we take them. Pay for success. Okay. All right.
Okay.
So that's turned into a $100 million project. We're just a small part of it, but it's a whole collaboration of agencies in Los Angeles. Good morning.
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 How you doing? Hi. How's it going?
Some of you
Okay.
may know, I hope
Yeah.
you've seen George Deleon.
Hi.
Right.
Hey, George. How you doing? It's a pleasure.
Okay. Good to see you.
Is Alan here?
Yes.
man.
We were back here having a
Hey,
little
George.
meeting.
All right.
All right, how you doing, Rob?
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
All right.
Well, hi there. It's been a while since the last time.
Now
I
you got
was
to tell
able
me
be
when.
present.
When was the last time?
I believe in Tucson during a workshop.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And that was many years ago.
Is it many years ago?
Yes, for that one, I believe.
So Alan runs this project.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well,
And he
this
was
is the first
actually a
I'm
guy
hearing
who
it.
would have qualified for the project.
Oh, yeah?
Absolutely, yeah. After.
So how long is this going now?
Oh wow! Well, we've had about 3 different versions, but originally the first Justin Reach project was in 2009.
2009.
Yes, and then we've had 3 different versions of it, and now this one is a more robust project, which is coming through funding from our county, which is Measure H.
Right.
Yeah.
So walk me, if we can do it.
Absolutely.
Walk me through the program. What are some of the
That's the
case
man to do it.
management activity? Walk me through.
Absolutely. Okay, so one of the things that first takes place is we get a referral
Okay.
down 2 different pathways. One is from the Office of Diversion and Reentry,
Right.
newly created department within the Department of Health Services to divert individuals from doing time in our county jails. The other pathway is through what's called court linkage. court linkage is through the Department of Mental Health, which is within the county jail. So
Are we disturbing people here? Should we?
no, we're good.
We're okay.
We're okay. Thanks. But outside of those two pathways,
Right.
we get our referrals. Once we receive a referral, our advocates go inside of the county jail and they do an assessment on the individual that's been referred.
They do an assessment.
Yes, they do.
I'd like to, in a moment, I want to hear more about that assessment,
Yeah.
but go ahead.
Okay, they do an assessment, they do an intake application, they bring those items back. That documentation gets loaded into a data collection system.
Right.
It's called CHAMP. After that's loaded, then I do a little corresponding with Department of Health Services concerning the necessary medication and housing that's going to be needed for that student upon release.
Okay.
Once that's done, the advocate goes to the jail, picks up the student, transports the student to that bridge housing location,
Okay.
does some other documents that are needed
Right.
concerning that housing, and then starts towards the permanent housing placement with the student.
Okay.
The ultimate goal, of course, is to have each one of these students housed in a permanent housing location, whether that's scattered site, an ERC, which is an enriched residential care facility, a little higher level of care, or maybe a skilled nursing facility, whichever is needed for that individual.
So this is mainly mental health reform.
Actually, most of our students are trimorbid, yes, and they mostly have mental health diagnoses.
Okay. So, in terms of how long they're in the program, if you want to call it a program, how long are you managing that?
Well, this project is kind of like so far for 10 years.
So they may be on the roster.
For a while, yes. We've seen like most come in with the higher acuity. Of course, it's our hope and goal that they go lower,
Right.
but unfortunately, a lot of times they stay at that high acuity level. So we don't have the ability like to step them down and then relinquish our services. Unfortunately, we're still providing services.
Well, I don't know how unfortunate, but it's the more chronic population.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
That's why we're getting paid to do it, is because they are very needy.
Very needy.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, some other service providers in years past haven't been able to provide the intensive services that we are now providing.
So the permanent housing, that's a big objective.
Yes, it
Get
is.
them in there. But what other objectives do you have for them?
One other, which is very crucial for most of our students, is connecting them to the full service partnerships, which are like the forensics full service partnerships, and those are the mental health services. And then making sure that the students are receiving the necessary therapies and meeting with the psychiatrist, because we have found that that's part of the issue most of the time, that they're not getting the necessary services, mental health services, that really help them to be balanced in the
They're not
community.
attending or they're not receiving?
Not receiving nor attending.
Okay. So, take the attending problem or issue.
Yes.
for one. How do you respond to the attending?
We have our advocates, which have a caseload ratio of 15 to 1.
15 to 1.
And they are coordinating those necessary services to make sure that each one of these students are appearing at their scheduled, whether it's mental health, whether it's seeing a primary care physician, whether it's going back to court for a progress report, but they're making sure that these individuals are showing up at these scheduled appointments.
And yet, you do have attendance breakdown, right? They don't show.
And of course, as with working with anybody, sometimes, unfortunately, they disappear on you. Dr. Deleon, they really do, and unfortunately, sometimes it's a chase down, but that's the intensity of the service, because we do actually do that. We will go to whatever extreme it takes to locate that individual, reschedule an appointment, do whatever is necessary to keep them on track.
So if you have it's usually the first objective of permanent housing.
Yes, it is. It's a housing first month.
It's a housing first month. So you know where to find them, presumably, right?
Presumably, yes, sir.
And then you go. Is that it? How do we know they're not attending?
Well, it is the advocate's responsibility to coordinate all the services for that student. So we know when that student has an appointment. We know if that student's not, making that scheduled appointment. We have relationships with a few different service providers, specifically that we meet with, we would collaborate with. Barbara and Floyd, there's a lot of mental health providers we actually have this big relationship with, that we're communicating back and forth, like, hey, this person is not showing up, okay, we're on it, so,
Okay.
yeah.
So it's the whole focus is management, but case management. But do you know what's going on in the permanent housing where they are?
Yes.
What that environment is like?
Yes,
What's
absolutely.
going on there?
We have a variety of permanent housing placements, as I referred to previously. Of course, if they're in a higher level of care, that particular permanent housing has a variety of other services made within. The rest of our students are housed in scattered site dwellings. Yep. So those services that are wrapped around at that scattered site are through us. We're the ones that wrap those services.
And one of the reasons we're working on involved in a couple of major housing developments is the scattered site is not ideal, because we're going out and doing kind of one-offs with people. If we can get the housing, consolidated, and where we have some control over that, then we can actually do a better job of supporting these folks.
Absolutely. As Rod was mentioning, the previous Justin Reach 2.0 project was just that. We had a partner, which was Skid Row Housing Trust. Those particular developments have services on site. So we were able to kind of like manage, because we had, 20 students in single residency occupancy units in one building.
Yeah.
So we have a little satellite office,
Right.
and we have the mental health service right there.
Right.
So it made it a lot better as far as coordinating those services.
And how, Alan, if you characterize this, what makes it Amity?
Okay, so one of the
Rather than just like, any one of 25 other agencies in town that are doing similar services. What's unique about it?
Okay, when it comes to our advocates being able to provide specific services, one of the things that we take from our teaching and therapeutic community is the community development portion, where we're really trying to take students not only and place them in a environment that's healthy for them, but also connect them to the community. And that's the one thing that I think stands out for our organization versus any of the other health agencies that are providing the same services, is that we are engaging our students in something within that particular community, whether it's Speak Up. We have a few participants who are graduates of the Speak Up, which is a advocacy done through the Corporation for Supportive Housing. So these individuals go to a school, they learn how to address communities concerning their stories, and we have a lot of other social engagement projects that we do within each individual's community. So I think that makes the difference with how we're providing services versus other
Say
providers.
within each individual's community.
Yes, we have people all over the place. We have people in San Pedro, we have people in Compton, so we have to actually find like what is in your community that you can connect to, so that you'll start to have this socialization, this reintegration into your own community.
So typically, what would you find in San Pedro? What would you find there?
There's a community resource center that we've connected one individual out in San Pedro to, and that they have like meetings, which are your anonymous fellowship meetings, concerning some of the other SUD issues that that individual has. And then not only does that particular organization do the meetings, but they have like weekly chess games, weekly card games. So it's like a little social network within that particular club. Yeah.
Give us the 2-minute version of your story.
2-minute version, absolutely.
For George.
I was straight out of high school in the delayed entry program for the United States Navy. directly over to Beirut in 1983, multinational peacekeeping forces. Came back with a big habit. That habit led me to 5 prison terms. Five. At the end of my 5th prison term, my parole officer dropped me off right here at this front gate and told me, go figure it out. I've been here ever since. That was December 6, 2006.
Really?
Yep. I've been here ever since.
What was here in 2006?
No, we started this in 2001.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's when we got the building.
That's when we got the building.
Oh, I didn't
Yeah.
know that date. Oh,
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Remember the TC conference? And it got interrupted by 9/11?
Yeah, yeah.
Remember that?
Columbus, Ohio conference.
We had bought this building on 9/1.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, so it was we'd had it exactly for 10 days when 9/11 happened.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, yeah.
So you got here in 6? Is that
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. 2006. And been a part of the community ever since, and it's afforded me an opportunity to really
So
give
when
back.
you got here in 2006, what was here?
Oh, well,
None of this on this side of the
no,
street.
yeah, none of this, just that
the other
side.
side of the
Yeah,
street.
and of course we weren't the same type of community project. It was unisex. You know, we had the women on the first floor. There were a host of workshops that I was engaged in immediately, which helped me in a lot of the areas that kind of led me down the pathway I went with my substance use. Like the grief and loss workshops, I did 2 of those. I got a plant, a flower dedicated to my mom right around the corner in the back there. Just a host of different things that exposed me, especially when we went to Tucson for a few different workshops, that exposed the Bridges workshop. I mean, just allowed me to kind of like look inside and see some things that I never even would have taken the time to do. And because of that, it led me from point A to point B, and here I am today.
So that was all going on across the street?
Yes. Yep.
Well, should we keep going?
Yeah.
All right.
It
Thanks,
was
Howard.
excellent. It's a pleasure.
Terrific. My pleasure. Thank you. Very, very, very informative.
Thank you, Dr.
Just catching up on all this.
All right. Okay.
And this building was the same thing. It was a warehouse. It was a sweatshop. People in with sewing machines, sewing, and
Yep.
I got to tell you, these transformations, physical transformations, are magical, right?
Yes.
Hopefully, you get matched with human transformations.
yeah, that's the idea.
Okay. Now, bye bye. Take care. Yes, sir.
That's some of the demonstrators from across the street, counselors come in, and this is their office.
Oh, is that right?
But let's take. I'll show you.
Wait a minute, I want to see this. This is, is this a typical schedule?
Yeah.
Do they do a morning meeting?
Yes.
Yeah?
Morning gathers.
Okay.
Come on over here, George.
All right.
Let's just get a kick out
Gotta
of
get
this.
that. Let's see. Okay.
Morning. So this is what it looked like before. This is
Oh,
the
yeah,
before.
yeah.
Just a big old, you know.
Striking is
You know,
these
this
changes.
is Naya.
How are you?
Warren.
Morning.
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 Morning. I want to look here at this again. And just,
Okay.
So you got another community meeting here, right?
The evening gathering.
The evening meeting. You got the morning meeting. Is there a daily seminar at all?
Yeah, so the seminars are here.
Right there.
All in there, so that's and typically that's 10 to 11. Is that it?
Right. And then at 8:30, right after breakfast, the guys go out and they clean up the campus. They'll help out with that.
Right.
Then they'll have the seminar. Then they'll have a class. It's either a seminar or they'll have a class in between there. Then we'll have lunch.
Right.
And then Mondays they have yoga meditation. Thursday again yoga meditation. And then they have FACE training classes on Tuesday.
What's this?
So FACE is Faculty Advocacy Community Engagement, and what that consists of is students and faculty engaging in
A topic?
a topic, and it may be away from curriculum or from treatment, and it's mostly it can be for politics and for emotional literacy, any type of stuff like that, which they engage, and it's for 2 hours. We set up circles of 6, and people engage.
And that looks like once a week, is that it?
Once a week, every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday.
Every Tuesday, yes.
This is where we have this is something Naya started about a year ago, where all the faculty and all the students get together in small circles. So it's half faculty, half students, or that, and interact on a topic that's really not treatment related, but really kind of current events and things like that. But it puts people again really in very close proximity and in interacting with one another.
Okay. And I see these.
Yeah, then we'll have dinner, and then they'll have evening gathering, and then on Monday there are NA meetings, and then we have circles, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
Any other group process activities? 8, 10, 15 in a group?
Other than this,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, so what happens, Dr. Leon, is that there'll be some of the groups faculty will come in the morning, so they have faculty that'll come in the morning and some in the afternoon.
Right.
So the demonstrators that come in the afternoon will have the circles in the evening, and then the demonstrators that come in during the morning and during the daytime, they'll have theirs somewhere around here. In between 10 and 11, 9 and 11, they'll have their circles, and the gentlemen or the students that are not in there will be either in a seminar or in some type of class. So they have curriculum and seminar. So if your demonstrator's coming in the evening, then you'll sit in the seminar.
Now the thing you're not seeing on this is that a lot of people are going out to work.
Correct.
Okay?
Out to work.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, in other words, at a certain point, they're out looking for jobs.
Off-premises jobs.
Yeah. Yeah. So, or they may be going to LA Trade Tech, for that, which is sort of the equivalent of school. Right. So that's. But this would be kind of probably the schedule for the group that are here the first 3-4 months. They'd be doing this.
When would you go out to work?
Depends on how long you're staying. For the people who are staying for a year, it's probably like 5 or 6 months before they start looking for a job. But we do get people, as I was telling you about this morning, like inappropriate placement. Somebody's here for 120 days. Well, they're going to have to start looking for work probably after a couple months. Because we don't want them leaving.
What percentage of the resident population is that, you think?
What do you think, Danny?
I'd say about maybe 5-10% of them that come in with that come in with those dates that are really short.
Short dates, 10%.
Yeah.
And the numbers are what? What are we talking about? What's the total?
150.
150. So roughly.
But there's another 35
Yeah.
that are placed that are on probation that are not ankle bracelet types,
Right.
and they can be here for up to a year as well.
But the short stayers is what I'm getting at. That
Right.
frequently
The
might be
inappropriate placements.
That's about 15-20% of the population. 15%, 10%, 10% of the population.
Yeah.
So it might be 15 people.
Yeah. And it's unfortunate that people have that short time, but I think they're working on that. So
We
that
are.
we
That's
can-
the
See any
policy
disruptive
side.
effects of them? Any disruptive effects from them
Well, I mean,
on the rest of the program, on the rest of the house, or the rest of the residents?
I don't think it has a big effect on everybody else. I think what happens is the big effect is for them because they don't have the opportunity to really grasp on to what
No,
we're
you're
trying to
right
give
about
them.
that. They're the primary individual. But my concern always is that if there's a certain threshold exceeded in terms of inappropriate clients, what's the effect on the whole community?
It doesn't enhance the experience for sure.
Yeah.
But this sounds, if it stays at about 10%, it might be manageable.
Yeah.
Not desirable, but it might be manageable.
Yeah.
As I see it. Okay. And the circles, I haven't seen the circles here. How many are in the circles?
So the circles will could be anywhere between 15 and 18. We're trying to get it back to 15. The reason they were up at 18 was because we were short on one demonstrator. So as soon as they get the other demonstrator, then it will go back to 15 per circle. Yeah.
And that's a 2-hour group, that circle. Right?
Correct.
It's a 2-hour
Yes, they
group.
engage with
Typically, what does that look like, that group?
So that group will be it'll be curriculum based.
Curriculum based?
Yeah, so they'll be working off of their books.
Okay.
Yeah, off of the curriculum books that are given to us from here from Amity. So most of it is that the circles are curriculum based.
Okay.
Yeah, and then sometimes you'll have some where some circles will have an issue with one of the students or something going on. Then as a group, they come together and they talk.
How often is that? Yeah.
It can. I mean, I would say maybe once a week.
Once a week, you might have a group like that.
Yeah, and it's either the student is doing having a hard time, or he's had a great time, and people want to kind of check in and make sure.
Affirmation is-
Yeah,
yeah.
and make sure that we don't.
Okay.
You don't get too excited.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So yeah, but it's we've been really lucky. We've had some really great demonstrators that are coming through that have really taken, the initiative to be with the guys and be attentive to them.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
All right. I appreciate that.
So, George, if you look at the schedule, is there something that you think is missing or something
Well,
that
I
you
was
haven't seen
exploring to see whether we had something that resembled a real group process group, not a curriculum-based group, but just more like maybe an encounter group. That sounds like.
Oh!
It sounds like this last one we were talking about.
Yeah. So, also, I think you're familiar. I'm pretty sure you enjoy this one. They have the core group also.
The core group.
So the core group meets Tuesday and Friday in the evenings.
Is it on the board here?
It's not on this board. So this was done. If you see, it was done in November.
Okay.
Somewhere, and they didn't add the. We do have in the dining room when we walk across the street. You'll see we have a screen, and on the screen it'll read. It's kind of flipping, and it's telling you what's going on and what days and so forth. So it'll show it on there that there's a core group.
And in that core group, what meets twice a week?
Twice a week. So
How many are in that core group?
I believe there's about anywhere between 10 to 15. It kind of fluctuates. People leave, and then we get new guys in. But right now, I think there's about 10, 13 gentlemen in there. Yeah.
And they meet twice a week. And what does that group look like? What's the format of it?
So that one is there's a lot of teaching going on. There is a lot of encounter groups with the core group.
Yeah.
And that's where they bring in some of the students that may be having a hard time. They'll bring them into the core group and have a conversation with them.
Okay.
And Raul, who's our one of our directors, assistant directors here, he has been overseeing it. Me and him kind of started it up again, and then I kind of started to do some other things. So he's kind of taking it on and continues to do that. So he meets with them. They set up hiking trips, a lot of different activities for the students. So that's kind of pretty much what they engage with.
And that consists of roughly, if you say 10 to 15, pretty much the
Students.
same peer group,
Correct.
same group.
Yeah. And they're pretty good with each other. They hold
Yeah.
each other. Yeah, they're pretty good with holding each other accountable and telling them
But
about the core group.
in terms of the total population, if you're talking about 100 maybe, right? Is that right?
The total population of here?
Yeah.
185.
185.
Yeah.
So you got these core groups though are small. So how many?
Yeah.
How many are there?
So there's about 15. So and then keep in mind, Dr. Leon, that we just brought the core group back in.
Oh, you did. Okay.
Yeah. So people are starting to kind of resonate to it. So people are kind of like they're at first they're standoffish. They're like, what is this? What
Yeah.
you know? So then once they start to notice, okay, it's kind of starting to help us, and then people start to kind of buy into it.
Is the intention to get most of the residents in core groups?
Yeah.
See, there was a lot of, during this, over a period of time here, a lot of the elements of the TC really slid,
Yeah.
And so in the past year, I've really been working with the faculty over here, and Danny's been a big part of that. It's
Right.
like, look, this is not a correctional program. This is therapy. This is a teaching and therapeutic community,
Right.
and those elements have to be here. Yeah, we got to accommodate the fact that they're on ankle bracelets.
Right.
We have to accommodate the fact that they're officially prisoners.
Right.
We have to deal with some of these sometimes inappropriate placements that come to us. People are not really ready, and they're for a short period of time. But let's make it the very best we can, and have all the elements of the therapeutic community that we know will really work here.
Okay.
You know, so the core group, the work projects. You know, you and I had this conversation in Dublin. You know,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
the need to be needed.
Yeah.
You know, so if they're not contributing to the community, then it's kind of like every other institution they've been in, where they're just a number. They're
So you think you're achieving some of this?
Yeah, yeah. It's gradual, and like as Rod said, it kind of fell off for a little bit. So we're trying to get it back, and then I think the ball's rolling.
When you say it fell off, you know, how long did it? When did it fall off?
Yeah.
And why did it fall off? You know,
I just think that a lot of stuff came into play, and people kind of were so focused on these new contracts and stuff that they kind of lost.
Yeah.
I don't think they lost it. They just
you get into
forgot.
contract compliance, and then you forget everything else. You know, which is like, hey, we have our own internal standards that we have to maintain, and you know how this goes, George. The outside is always on you. Are you complying? Are you complying?
Yeah.
Internally, there's no one telling you you've got to comply. That has to come from within. That has to come from your leadership within, that is saying, hey, what are our standards? You know, but there isn't anybody saying if you don't do good circles, you're not going to get paid. If you don't have a good morning gathering, you're not going to get paid, because they don't care.
right?
Okay, we have to care.
Yeah.
That's the arc of the TC, you know, in a lot of ways. So we're going to go this way first, and we'll come back here because there's a big faculty meeting. And
It was a faculty meeting.
So for the Broadway project, this is the one where we're the SASCA essentially.
Oh, I see.
Okay. But this is our kind of our best opportunity for doing kind of a drive-by on this one, and you're seeing it.
How many staff are in this here?
Well, there must be what? How many people working at Amistad?
Amistad, we have, I think, somewhere in the
50?
range of 45, 50.
45 or 50. Yeah. And then at Stop, there's probably another 50, right?
Yeah, Stop has 50. I believe maybe a little.
Yeah. So then the Just in Reach where you just went to, they probably got 30 people.
Yes.
Yeah. 30 or 40.
Case management program?
Yeah, yeah. And then you have Beacon, which we're going to see this afternoon. And there's probably 15 maybe.
Yeah.
15 package.
Yeah.
Now you see these, George?
Yeah.
These are built to keep the homeless people from building
These
up
chain
against them.
links, you mean?
Yeah. They're illegal, but they're doing it anyhow. See, this is what you're going to see a lot in Los Angeles. And that's where, if we don't do a good job, this is where our folks end up.
My eyes, right?
So that's kind of an incentive
Thank you.
for us, you know, which is we don't want our people.
George, I heard they're gonna organize Woodstock again. Is that true?
Every year, periodically, they go through another episode.
Yeah.
I don't know how finalized it is yet, but
It's supposed to be a big one.
I heard they're gonna try to bring the old lineup back, like Santana and stuff.
one of the issues really is going to be the exact location of it. That's the issue. That's one of the issues. The original Woodstock there was 30 miles away from Woodstock.
Yeah. The Asper's Farm, right?
So we're going where now?
We're right over here. Which was fortunate. We were fortunate for us to find a building so close.
Right.
You know, we're trying to cluster as much as we can because it makes it a lot easier for managing it and for people to interact with each other. We really want the folks who are doing kind of, you know, these case management services
Yeah.
to have that opportunity to get engaged with the therapeutic community. So they keep getting infused with, like, you know, this is about, as you said, identity change. It's not just about case management. You know, our goal is much bigger than that.
This was a surprise to hear this case management program because it has all of the elements of the traditional case management initiatives.
Yeah.
And I wanted to hear, you raised the question about what's distinctive about the Amistad.
Yeah.
And the issue is how much real community, how much we're getting these individuals into community.
Right.
We need to talk more about that.
Yeah. Good morning. I wanted to bring my good friend and colleague, George Deleon, over. How many of you have seen some of the videos from George? Put your hands up high. Make him feel good.
Well, that's show business, you don't get
Yeah. So, George has been involved with therapeutic communities since what, 1960? Early 60s, and has been the most prolific writer, researcher, and trainer. Travels all over the world teaching people about therapeutic communities. And it's always a great pleasure for us. You know, I see George at international conferences every year or two, but it gives me always a great deal of pleasure when he can come here. And he's never been to our California campuses,
Right.
So this is kind of first. And he's saying, wow, this is different than what I thought it was. And so just wanted to introduce him. And if you have any questions, or you want to say a couple things, George?
Well, in the early days, I had a dance routine, but I can't do it now. I don't. First of all, good morning, family. And I don't want to take too much of your time. It's a great pleasure for me to be here. Rod asked whether you had questions. I can't imagine whether you'd have questions. We haven't had any conversations at all. But do you have any questions? Anything on your mind about the work you're doing, the people you're working with, and your own experience? Anything that you would want to raise and that I can perhaps respond to? Good
Just
morning.
briefly, in a nutshell, can you describe what is TC Community?
Okay, I mean that's a kind of
It's kind of what we were talking about last night.
yeah. Well, look, you got two words there, right? Therapeutic community. So if you look at the two words, you can get an understanding of them together. How do we use a community, like any community? Community is a collection of people with shared interests, shared norms. That's any community. But when you put the word therapeutic community, it means how do we use a community to produce therapeutic effects? How do you use community to change people? So if you wanted a simple definition of a therapeutic community based on what I just said, therapeutic community is we as a community. It's a therapeutic community if we essentially teach you, the individual, we, the community, teach you, the individual, how to use us, the community, to change yourself. Do you follow me on that? There's a little choreography there, but okay. We teach you to use us to change you. In the end, you're the empowered one. So when we talk about, in terms of your question, well, it's a very important question because it highlights the distinction that the therapeutic community has relative to all other kinds of communities. You have all other kinds of communities. What's distinctive about the therapeutic community is that it's special communities which exist so that individuals use those communities by living in them, participating in them, to learn about themselves, to change themselves. Does that help?
Very nice. Thank you.
This contract, the STOP contract, or used to be called SASCA, was one that I studiously avoided for about 20 years because I said, can we add value? I mean, it's kind of a bureaucratic deal and we're case managing, placing people and driving people around. And finally, after the last couple of contractors here, I said, okay, it's kind of time for us to step up to the plate. And let's see whether we can improve the whole range of treatment options in Los Angeles for all these men and women coming out of prison. If we can make an incremental difference, you know, I mean, we're going to keep trying to hit the gold standard at Amity, at the campuses that we control and operate. Try and make them the highest, both for the benefit of our people, but also inspiration for other folks. You know, like, hey, you can do a better job. You can make more of a difference for people. But if we can, with this project, improve services for everybody coming out of prison in Los Angeles County, I'm going to feel pretty good about that. And I hope you'll, that's what I want you to join us in, is that goal, you know. And we're going to use everything we can. Part of this is that, as George said, we have to become a community. We can't teach community if we aren't one, right? Okay. You know, so the kind of leadership that Barry can provide and some of the other people in the room here who've had quite a bit of therapeutic community experience is very, very valuable. But the more that we kind of buy into the notion that we can actually, in the course of this contract, which is 5 years, so in the next 4.5 years, and who knows, we may have it for, you know, ever, you know, we never know. But if in the next 4.5 years we can significantly improve services for every man and woman coming out of prison, that's a good goal. And if we can inspire other providers to start, how can we get better? How can we increase? Many of them, I hope, are going to start saying, well, tell me about that therapeutic community thing. You know, we have a friend in Australia who actually changed the entire system so that you had residential programs and then the gold standard was therapeutic community. And she did that in about 10 years. I think we can do that here. You know, it's a big goal, it's a big lift, but what the hell, you know? We might as well give it a shot. You know, nothing ventured, nothing gained. Okay? So nice to be here with you this morning. I just wanted to bring George over to see this operation. We've been talking about it, and Barry said, hey, come on over. We're all together. So, thank you.
We'll see you soon. We'll see you soon.
You didn't really see the interior, but this was a school that was really funky.
Yeah.
And we've been in working on it now for 6 months, and
well, again, it's a hell of a space.
Yeah, yeah.
And how many folks are in it? This all staff.
Yeah, it's all staff.
Yeah, how many are in there?
It must be
45, 50?
Yeah, like 50, 60 people in there.
So it looks like more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you see, she raised a good question.
Yeah.
It's what I find in the years of training. It's a conceptual question. People want to actually get it conceptually. What is it? You know,
Yeah.
What's the therapeutic community? And not simply testimony.
Yeah.
But what is the approach? And that's why I essentially carved that definition of it.
Right.
What's a community is therapeutic, you know what I mean?
Right. It's a little bit of a dialectical.
It is.
You know?
It is.
You know?
The community teaches the individual to use the community to change themselves.
And then to participate in the community.
Yeah.
So it keeps going back and forth. So here's our fleet, all hybrids. So this was, that's the kitchen. We'll go there in a minute.
Okay.
This was basically a parking lot.
Okay.
So when we first got this, I looked at it and I said, oh my God. And then I thought, well, let's just get rid of this and we'll put something really nice in here. You know?
All dirt, right?
Huh?
Wasn't it dirt or something like that?
Asphalt, man.
Ah.
It was asphalt.
Y'all filming?
Yeah. This is an aquaponic garden. So in its winter stage right now.
Yeah,
It's probably
it
not
is.
growing
It is.
very much, but we get
It's a nice, wonderful space.
This is where they get their solitude and they come out here, read
I can
books.
see why.
and- yeah.
I can see why.
And
Yeah.
for the families, you
Yeah.
know, we have family visits, and you come out here on a weekend, and people are hanging out, enjoying it.
Yeah.
Hey,
How are you?
Good. How are you?
Well, I'm
Goodness,
here. That's
you are. I know. We were saying it's like, geez, hanging on in
Good
there.
to see you. Good to see you.
hey, how you doing?
Good. Good morning.
How you doing? Good enough. So, can we do first floor?
Yeah, come on.
Just walk through first floor, and then we'll go take a look at the dining room.
They're all pretty similar.
Yeah, they are similar. Right?
Yeah,
They're all pretty similar. You can knock on this door down.
So one of the things we want to do, if we get the funds to do it, is come in and we'll put in new plumbing, replumb all of that. We've done a lot of that.
Yeah.
But do the whole thing, put in a whole new electrical system in the building, and just a lot of that stuff.
So most of this is three people.
Yeah, they all 3 people per room, except for there's 2 rooms we open up the wall and they have 6. And they're on the higher floors.
Okay.
The second floor we were using as a group room, but since we're refurbishing the building, we use it for overflow. When we close a room, we put the guys in there.
I see.
Yeah,
And,
so.
and probably almost every week you've got one room that's down because the plumbing has gone bad, the electricity has gone bad, whatever. This is literally painting the Golden Gate Bridge, and then as soon as you're done with one end, you got to paint it again.
Yeah, pretty much. Just down at the end is where the mentors lounge is.
The Mentors Lounge.
Yeah, some more offices.
All right.
Let's gather your nations.
Oh, yes.
This is San Miguel de Allende.
Never been there.
Oh,
You should go. It's a cool place.
That's what I hear.
these guys are gone. Yeah, mostly, most of the mentors go out, so
They're out, you say?
yeah, they work and they have a different schedule because they've been in prison for so long. They go out to classes and school and getting IDs and things like that. So in the daytime they're gone a lot.
So,
This was the lobby of the hotel.
oh, I see.
Yeah.
I know I can't stand
You can see here's the old front desk.
It's a riot. Somebody touched it.
So she says most of the men are out.
Or
Oh,
they're
I
going
see.
to classes or something like that.
So they've been around here for a while.
Yeah. And they've made, the other part of that is that they don't really have substance abuse issues.
Right.
And they, that's really not their issue. They have more reintegration issues, which is figuring out after 20, 30 years in institutions how to live in the free world.
Yeah.
How to reconnect with their families. Finding supportive people. Most of them that we see, Danny, you'd say this, right? They've got good jobs. Most
So
of them have got a nice.
What's the average age of those
What
guys?
do you think? High 40s? High 40s. Most of those guys, and of course I'm not here every day, but most of those guys that I
Did you get something from,
that I'm aware of. I mean, you know, like Big Don.
Yeah.
You know, he'd done 33 years in prison. He was here for a year.
Okay.
Next time I saw him, he's driving a car. He's got a girlfriend. He's living in a nice place. You know, I mean, the guy practically glows. He's so happy. You know, and I really see a lot of that with these longer term guys. I'm amazed at how well they do. You know.
So in their histories, did they have substance abuse issues?
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But most of them, they're lifers. They didn't get arrested for jaywalking. Most of them committed violent crimes, but they did it when they were very young. You know.
A lot of them got tried under the juvenile stuff, and kind of. We had a gentleman, I think, maybe about less than a year ago. He transitioned from here, but he was tried as a juvenile and had a life sentence, and they allowed him to come home. And that guy picked up. Like, he got right into the union, got a really great job, just recently bought himself a brand new truck, but he was really motivated, and he really wanted to make up for all that time that he had lost. You know?
And you'll see more of those guys this afternoon when we go over to Beacon. That's the population that's over there. You know, and the department. You know, Jerry Brown. You know, I mean, he came down here and a couple of years ago and addressed, because he's released more of these folks than anybody in California history. And he met with them and he said, you know, a lot of you guys are doing time because I thought I was doing the right thing when I was governor the first time with these, you know, harsh indeterminate sentences, you know, or harsh determinate sentences rather. And he said, I just want to apologize and see what I can do. It was, you know, haven't heard that from very many officials.
Yeah, he's
you
been
know?
public with that. He's made public statements about that.
But, you know, a lot of the guys, when we had that meeting with the lifers, they said, look, you know, we don't want to do a drug program. We don't have drug problems. We got other issues we need to address. And so we've been able to kind of, the Beacon Street is an answer to that, which is, you know, here it's kind of mixed. Because you got a lot of people who still need to really work on those issues. But a lot of these guys have been done all the years. They haven't used drugs in many, many years, and that's not really what they're not in imminent danger of relapse.
Right.
If they're going to have additional criminal behavior, it's not probably going to be drug related. It's going to be more violence. You know, that's really the issue we need to work on. Did Harry ever show you the Lancaster work? The thing we did in Lancaster?
I don't remember.
The Lancaster guys were all level 4, you know, violent criminals. And what he showed was that the outcomes for those guys who went to aftercare, community-based aftercare, was as good as level 2 inmates, nonviolent inmates. So the model really works.
They went to community-based aftercare.
Right, if they went. Now the problem was getting them there, because you do 20, 30 years in prison, the last thing you want to do is be any place where they tell you what to do, right? And that's really where the MCRP comes in, this project here, which is like, well, yeah, we're going to tell you what to do, but you get in a year, you know, basically it's a year in the community rather than a year in a cell. And that's the attractiveness of it. But it also really works because then we get that time with them in the community.
That actually is the right formula.
Yeah.
Everything has what we've been calling aftercare. All of the data points to that. If they go to aftercare, any bona fide aftercare, as a matter of fact, it doesn't even have to be a TC or aftercare. Any bona fide aftercare.
But better, particularly because a lot of our guys have not had the primary treatment experience in prison, then it really the TC, you know, we got to bring in all those elements because, as you said, they're not ready for reentry because they haven't had they haven't even got their feet on the ground. You know, so that's why we're really, you know, I'm talking to Danny, I'm talking to Raul, I'm talking to Antoinette and our other staff. We got to really have a very, very strong therapeutic community for these guys who they haven't been prepped, you know, and it has to be pretty intensive because
You know, a year seems like a long time. It isn't a long time. We're trying to change lifetime habits
Yeah.
and patterns. As you said, we're trying to change their identity
Yeah.
in less than a year. You know, and that's it's a tall order.
Well, we'll talk presumably a little bit about this tomorrow, but this issue of what we know about aftercare, what we know about primary treatment, what is the critical amount of time and involvement. There's now 40 years of knowledge on that. We now know a lot. We know it clinically, we know it from research. So, and you need to take advantage of all that information. If you're getting the population you're getting, describing some of these subpopulation, these profiles, with or without primary drug problems, how much change has occurred. Most of the good effects that you're seeing in these median age 40, 45-year-old is maturation effects that have occurred in these individuals. And so that if you really have a grasp of what we now know about the nature of aftercare, the nature of the primary, what has to happen, what has to be accomplished at the primary level, when can they really constructively use the aftercare, constructively use it. They provide one of the great problems in all reentry programs, prison reentry, criminal justice reentry programs. It did not take any awareness of where the individual was in their capacity to constructively use reentry services. They can get jobs, but they can't keep jobs.
Yeah. Right.
You know, they had a few guys also, George, that they were asked if they wanted to go home under their ankle bracing, but they can go home. And a handful of them said, no, we're going to stay.
Yeah.
You know, we want to stay. We're not ready for that. So I think that's
great. That's
speaks
important
volumes
testimony.
of what's going on.
Important testimony.
Let's go over and look at the dining room, and then we'll go back and hook up with Naya, see what she's
Okay.
been up to.
Good.
Hey, Ian.
Hi.
How you doing, Ian?
Good, how are you?
He's one of our good guys here, George. Really good.
Must be his husband.
That's it.
Very nice to meet you.
It's the best title I got.
I'm sorry,
That's
I didn't
okay.
catch your name when you told me.
that's okay.
And you must be George.
Yeah.
Very nice to meet you. My name's Ian.
Good to see
I
you.
had an interesting conversation with Naya across the street.
Oh, yeah?
I was telling her how great this place is.
Yeah?
She said you were interested in research or doing research, and it's a coincidence because that's what I'm kind of sort of doing here before I even go home. I'm working on a research project with Cal State Los Angeles.
What's the project?
We're researching the association relationship between participation in educational rehabilitative programs and in-prison behavior.
In-prison behavior.
In-prison behavior. It's something that I've been working on for 3.5 years. And it was just last year that it attracted the attention of the university, so they're using it as a foundation for a pilot research study. Hopefully we'll continue it and expand to see what the relationship is between specific programs, college education in particular, and recidivism rate, of course. So I waited 1.5 years to come here specifically.
You did?
Yes, to this particular facility community, because I've heard really good things, and so far it's lived up to those expectations.
Yeah?
Exceeded in some cases.
What stands out for you most?
You know, definitely the sense of community. I think it's incredibly important for guys who are coming out of, correctional settings to get a feel for, being out in society. And I know society can be brutal, it can be rude, it can be all that.
Right.
But, being in an environment where, you're taught to communicate effectively with others, to coexist with others peacefully.
Right.
And hold yourself accountable, and in a sense hold others accountable around you,
Right.
and kind of move forward in the same direction. I think it's incredibly powerful, and I know they're also working on integrating other programs that targets others, specific needs, like employment skills, possibly even having formerly incarcerated people transitioning, open up their own service-based businesses so that they can, make a good living out there. So it's a great program.
Well, it's very, very impressive testimony, actually. You're using some of the key words. Accountability, communication.
Yeah. It's key. I learned from a communication professor a little while back that, even crime is a failure of communication, and it makes sense, for sure. And again, it's the value of education and access to resources, inside and especially in these transitional settings, because the guys here literally have 1 foot out the door. And I tell them, every chance I get, like, this is the launching pad to the rest of your life. And if you don't take advantage of what's here, then, your chances of success, they just diminish. And so I'm a very good observer, and that's kind of what I see here. Don't get me wrong. You will get the individuals who are just cycling in and out.
Yeah.
Who perhaps haven't done, and I hate to say this, haven't done enough time to really appreciate freedom, and so they're gonna cycle in and out. Hopefully, eventually, they'll catch on. We're all individuals. There are commonalities, right? But we all kind of have our own set of circumstances that.
So one element that you talked about is the actual sense of community.
Right.
Being here.
Right.
A sense of community.
Right. It's when you're incarcerated, the structure is so rigid.
That's a community too,
It is.
The institution.
It is. But it's very rigid. You have, the official rules and regulations, and then you have the unofficial rules and regulation norms among, the inmate population. And they're very, very rigid. I think a lot of the times, that way of thinking is brought back out into the communities, and it's one of the motivating factors or one of the driving forces that cause people to act in certain ways that are just not acceptable to society, because it's prison mentality.
Yeah.
And when you have individuals who have been incarcerated for decades, years, sometimes just months, that sticks with them. They assimilate that stuff, and it requires a safe environment for them to kind of separate from that and learn to really coexist and learn what's really acceptable to society again. And it's incredibly valuable. It's not just about the hard skills. It's about that building community and feeling that you're a part of community. Because if you feel that you're a part of community, then you have a sense of responsibility.
It's very, very critical.
Absolutely.
Statement in terms of contrasting a therapeutic community like this and prison community.
Right.
One culture, this culture. And this is the real message that has to be underscored, because that's the distinction. What's the approach of the therapeutic community, particularly in the reentry process, is to provide another culture where individuals can learn some of the things you're talking about. Well, that's very encouraging.
Because culture is very, very difficult to change on the inside. I mean, that's just the reality of it. Even, this culture in general is very difficult to change. And so there has to be a very strong focus on that, for individuals coming out. And not everybody is fortunate to come to places like this, because space resources are obviously limited. Hopefully in the future that won't be so much the case.
Well, then we'll stop. I don't want to take too much of your time, but the key in terms of the future is the success of this kind of a program.
Exactly.
Don't worry about whether there's going to be future resources. This has to be successful.
Right.
And if that success becomes notable, then there's a natural energy to begin advancing.
And it's one of the reasons why I waited 1.5 years to come here. And it's one of the reasons why I came this way, because I wanted to experience everything that is actually available to a person who wants change and who wants to succeed in life. And I'm building a platform for a podcast that's been sanctioned by CDCR, so that I can kind of document that through there. And I'm fortunate enough to be working on a future 8-part series with a producer called Prison Kind.
That's terrific. He's very ambitious.
Where we're going to outline, the criminal justice prison system as it was in the past, as it is now, and hopefully what it can look like in the future. And again, these kind of programs are crucial, I think, to the future.
The success of the program can change the world. Your success can change the world.
And I'm very conscious of that. And I tell guys that, it's not just about you. It's going to be about the person who's coming after you, and what opportunities are made available to that person based on what you do with this opportunity. And so it's crucial, and I think they definitely emphasize that community. You know, don't think just about yourself, because it's not just about you, it's about everybody else.
Okay.
When we started the Donovan project, I would meet with the guys and I would always say, like, look,
If you do this right, you're going to open doors for thousands of people who you'll never see. It'll never say thank you, but you'll have done a good thing, you know. And we did, you know. We opened up the whole thing.
It's about, I tell guys, by the way, you talked to me 5-6 years ago, this wasn't me. I was the problem.
This is identity change.
Yeah, I was definitely the problem.
This is identity change.
And so I tell guys now, it's about doing the work for the work and creating value. When you do the work for the work, you're not thinking about anything else that's attached to it. You know, the good or the bad. You're just doing it for the work, and you're building that value. And you know, next thing you know, when you actually do build value, everything else just follows. You know, the good stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's very, very important.
One of the measures of identity change, because it could sound like an abstract concept, but that particular phrase is a very common, actually, definition of identity change. This wasn't me.
Right.
So it's not simply the word behavior change, which is involved in identity change. It's a totality word. This wasn't who I am, or this is me. This is who I was then. This is who I am now. That's an identity label.
Yeah.
That's what we mean by identity.
Yeah,
change.
absolutely.
So you get out and out testimony on this thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for that.
You're
And
welcome.
it was very spontaneous, and it's good for the book, and it's good for everything.
I don't know what the book is.
No,
I don't even know
no.
exactly what you're recording for, but they said I should probably come and speak to you and
I'm glad you did.
talk about a few things that that I've kind of been looking forward to and what
Keep
I'm
your
working
balance
on.
and keep going forward.
And I believe
Keep your balance.
I will. Yeah, for sure. Everything in life is about balance. And I tell people, when integrating programs inside of prison, trying to bring programs into prison, you have to understand not only the people you're serving, the inmate population, but you have to also understand staff. And I've been fortunate enough to be able to see both sides of that coin, and so it always amuses me. So especially when it's like new correctional officers or administration that are just getting their feet wet with finding out what the programs are all about and what rehabilitation opportunities can be offered. It's always interesting.
Well, you included the older person, but you're a much larger person. So here's the dining room.
Yes, it is.
This was when we got it. Right. This was all a rabbit warren of probation officers' offices
With a very low ceiling.
You walk off the street into these havens.
Yeah.
So let's show the kitchen. All right. Is Alan here today? Do you know?
When you create an environment of beauty, it respects the individuals who are in there. This is, in itself, is a therapeutic effect. It's kind of paradoxical, because usually we're talking about residents who've had very difficult lives and lived in very, very dark circumstances of their lives, physical circumstances. And you create a physical environment which is beautiful. It teaches immediately respect for the space, respect for yourself, because you have to be accountable for the space, and your own self-esteem is affected. It has a unique therapeutic effect itself, namely the environment. When they have beautiful environments that they have to maintain, that in itself is a profound therapeutic intervention, because it's teaching how to essentially to respect yourself by respecting your own environment.